Hey everyone! Welcome back. I am back today with more Steel Ball Run, and today we are officially bringing an end to my Steel Ball Run manga review journey, you guys. It's a bittersweet day. It was an amazing part. Part of me couldn't wait to get through it so I could really judge the whole thing as a whole. And the other part of me is just sad that it's over. Of course, as with most JoJo parts, I do feel like they get better the more you know them, there's nothing like that first time experiencing it, but there's so much, they tend to be so dense that going over them over and over, as I have with all the other parts, actually makes it more fun. So, we do have that to look forward to now. And in that spirit, I would like to do a tier list ranking video with you today. I said I was going to do kind of like a wrap-up review video, and it is kind of, but the more I thought about it, the more I feel like I really said all I wanted to say at the end of my last video. I think I pretty much summed up my feelings about my takeaways from it, all the major stuff. So today we're going to be doing a little bit more of the detail work, going over individual characters, individual stands, and ultimately my ranking of all the parts, which was so hard, you guys, and the Jojos, which is so freaking hard. So before we get into it, I do just want to say, if you're joining me early today, you know just what that means. It means you are one of my awesome patrons. Thank you so very much. And as always, I am sending up those big old hugs right through that screen. And if not, still, thank you for joining me today. I'm glad you're here. I do hope you'll consider supporting me that way. The link to my Patreon is going to be in that description down below. If you're joining me on the YouTubes, I really hope you'll hit like and subscribe for me. It helps me and my channel a whole lot, so thank you in advance for that. All right, so again, the agenda for today is tier list of Steel Ball Run characters, tier list of Steel Ball Run stands, and a ranking of the parts and the JoJos to date that I have seen or read. And guess what that's going in, you guys? I have missed this book so much. I honest to God would take my notes for the manga reviews in these because it is so stinking cute and I love looking at it. I use this a lot for theories and ideas and thoughts and hopes and dreams when I was watching the series and reacting to it. If you could see the notes I do for I would be able to fit maybe one batch in here and then it would be done because it's not that thick of a notebook. Oh look, it's a Jolene sticker. I got a JoJo World, yay. I put that in there for safekeeping. So yes, I decided to write my rankings in there because it's enough to just take up about a half a page. So we're good. So yeah, guys, first off, I want to start off by saying, just reiterating how good Steel Ball Run was. It is peak. I think before I even get into rankings, I will say it is unequivocally the best part. And that's my opinion, and I feel like best parts are very subjective. Of course, everyone can have their own opinion, but I think there is some real good evidence to back up the claim that this is the best JoJo part ever. Just in the way it's done. Story, art, writing, characters, everything. It's peak. It's peak. So yeah, so let's get into my rankings of the characters. I did my rankings, I did my tier list on a site called tiermaker.com. I'll try to remember to put the link here so that if you want to go and make your own tier list, you can. They basically let you fill in the categories yourself, and then they have all of the characters that you can drag and drop in the different categories. I did my own tiers. It was very hard to me to just be great, good, okay, bad. Because there really were no badly written characters in Steel Ball Run. I really feel there were some that were just there and didn't have big impact on the story. There were some that were horrible and devious but amazingly written. And there were some that were just God tier. So that's where we're starting with today. I do have a God tier. And yes, in case you were wondering, Jesus is at the top of the list. He is the first one in God tier. But I did decide to split it up between, having like, these are epic characters that I love them, and they're powerful and they're amazing. Second category is villain, like not somebody I necessarily like, but maybe I do like them. I don't know, I'll get into each one individually, but they're just so well written, or their stand is so cool, or they made such a big impact, that they gotta take second place, Then we have best bros and sisses. Fourth is like, they didn't have a lot to do, but their impact was big, or that there was something really cool about them. But like, kind of a little mad, but not quite like ick. And then there's ick. There's just a straight up ick category. We'll get into it. And there were some that like I just didn't fit anywhere, and they'll be honorable mention. I don't know. So, all right. So starting off with God tier, of course, Jesus is at the top of the list. He's Jesus. How do you not put him top in God tier? Like, the whole story was about him. The whole universe was about him. We know now just what an amazing impact that he had on the story, not only in the search for the parts, influencing everyone's lives so much, but also just the fact that, like, when you really think about it, that is absolutely crazy. That, like, of the infinite amount of universes, there was only one with the corpse parts. Like, the influence was so strong. Not to mention this, I guess what we're to assume would have been Jesus' stand, which is what we see at the end with Love Train. I don't know. When Lucy gets it, it's called Ticket to Ride. And when Valentine gets it, it's called Love Train. I don't know if they're the same exact thing. They're not the same exact thing, because Valentine definitely had it stronger. But yeah, like, it's about as OP as you could get. Except that Johnny was able to... But I feel like Johnny had a lot of help from Jesus as well, because they never did explain why, Johnny lost the corpse parts, but he ended up still having a stand and everything. And so there were a few other characters that were like that too, to be honest. Gyro and Diego as well. But I like to think that, like Jesus was on a side, They never really came out and were like, that where we kind of left it was like, this is ultimate power, not to be confused with Ultimate Cars, but this is ultimate power, and you can kind of use it for bad or for good, depending on where you stand with it. And that's why, like, nobody really should have it at the end of the day. But I kind of like to think Jesus was looking out for Johnny. So he's first, okay? Next will be Johnny, obviously. I mean, how many Jojos can you think of that could take down two OP, time-related, universe-related stands in one part? About, what, a few hours apart? Like, I mean, technically he didn't take down the world. He did not do that. We know that it was actually Lucy that did that, which I think was, mwah, chef's kiss. I love that. I love that after all she went through, she got to do that. But, I mean, he was able to affect Zawirldo. And he is like the only one that has been able to do that without actually having Zawirldo. Like, that's pretty crazy. And he was able to take down D4C. So, pretty OP. Plus, just Johnny as a character, I love him. The reason he's in God tier is because I love Johnny. He's amazing. He's so real. He's so fun to go on this journey with. And I don't know, there's just something about this part that's so, like, down to earth. But I mean, none of JoJo's is really down to earth, because it's JoJo's. But there's just something about him. He's just so real. I don't know. Gyro, of course, is in God tier for obvious reasons, because he's Gyro and because he's my love forever and he's always in my heart. Is Gyro the best Zeppeli? Guys, I feel so wrong saying this when my beloved Caesar is also in this category, but like, Gyro might honestly be the best Jobro of all time. Maybe right up there with like Speedwagon and Bruno, and I mean, that's pretty tough competition, but like, he might be just all around in terms of his contribution to the story, the way he was written, how well he was written, how much fun he was. Like, for a Jobro, he literally was like, he really gave main character vibes for like the longest time. Honestly, like right alongside Johnny, even when Johnny started to get a little bit more of the focus and the spotlight and everything, Gyro was always like, felt like he was at least the other main character, you know what I mean? He was just incredible. I loved him. I still love him. Okay, this one is more or less in jest. I put Slow Dancer and Valkyrie on here because I don't think that they got nearly enough like love and praise and attention, and I want to put them in God tier as kind of like half a joke and half like best horsies, hands down. So they're kind of in God tier just because I felt like it, because they're horsies and they're nice, okay? Like, do I need more reason than that? I mean, to be fair, like Slow Dancer wasn't dead though. I was gonna say like Slow Dancer like died and came back to life, but was maybe more just like dying. Plus they were like, I think, oh, they went the IG. You know what? I don't need to, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I feel like you're all out there like, we get it. We love the horses. All right. Next here is villain, but so good. So these are villains that like were top tier. I mean, you could argue, like a lot of you are gonna say, like, how is Valentine not in God tier? He literally had the corpse parts in the stand and all of that. And I'm not denying that he was that powerful. So just to clarify, the second category is based on my feelings alone, because I acknowledge these are villains. They're great, maybe OP in Valentine's case, but like as characters, I can sit here and say they're amazing villains, they're amazing characters, they're OP, but for me personally, subjectively, I'll never be able to like put them at top spot, you know what I mean? Like, because they're villains. But I just want you to understand, this is like villain, but like mwah. Does that make any sense? Like, just for me personally, emotionally, I can't connect to Valentine the same way that I connect to Gyro. Like, does that make sense? Okay, I just want to make sure you all know that I'm not denying that Valentine was, like, super OP. And when we get to the stands, which is a little bit more, objectively looking at the power itself, you'll see how I rank things a little bit differently, okay? So first off is Funny Valentine. He was such a good villain, arguably one of the best villains. While we didn't get like a huge focus on him and his backstory the way that we did for, say, someone like Poochie in part 6, he still just felt like a really like well-developed character, especially for the amount of time that we actually got him, because we didn't, were we about? I don't think we were halfway. We were definitely less than halfway through. Like, we were maybe like a quarter of the way through before we really started to like introduce him and get into him and everything. But he was just so good in every way. He had an amazing power that was interesting, and ultimately like almost the strongest, because of getting the Love Train edition. Great design, great motivation. I said this a little bit in my last review. I think it was my last one or the one before. No, I think it was the last one, where I was talking about how he has a very different kind of motivation than a lot of other villains. Like, there is sort of I wouldn't say it's not humility, but compared to other JoJo villains, like, he does feel different. He does feel set apart. There is a part of him that feels like he's willing to sacrifice anything, even like going to Johnny at the end and trying to like reason with him, even though that ended up being a trick. But like, I don't know, that's just kind of where it hit me, that like, oh, he heads a little bit, this isn't about ego. It's not about like a fetish. It's not about power. It's not even really about like a big kind of like glory to anyone. It's just his really skewed loyalty to his country. And so I thought he was great. I thought he was an awesome villain. I hated him. There were times when I'm like, I don't know, do I hate him or Dio more? To be fair, we never saw Valentine hurt a dog. So it might still go to Dio. But yeah, he was super hateable. I mean, they just like... Araki knew just how to use Lucy in this. Because as much as it pains me to have her put in so many awful situations, nothing got me riled up more than like watching someone try to hurt her. It was just... Yeah, actually he did hurt a horse though. He hurt Slow Dancer, so... I don't know. All right, next, Diego. Have a very... Okay, I want to clarify. The Diego on my list here is Scary Monsters Diego. They did not have 2 entries for Diego, for like Zawoldo Diego and regular Scary Monsters Diego. I loved Diego. I definitely felt so conflicted over him. I think any character that would inspire so much like love, but also disappointment in me really deserves a lot of merit. Because I just, right up to like the last second where we see him get killed and everything, by the train, by the way, because again, we're talking about Scary Monsters Diego. I just held out so much hope for him, and there was just like this big part of me that like, I don't know, I got attached in a big way to Diego. And that's really saying something considering, you know, we did see how selfish and kind of like power hungry he could be. We have all of this baggage with him basically being Dio, but in a different universe. And you know how much I hate Dio. So yeah, so I think it really says something that like, I love Scary Monsters personally. I mean, obviously if we're talking about Zawoldo Diego, I mean, he'd definitely be like OP power category as well. I thought Scary Monsters was a very good power. There was nothing like weak about it at all. But I just like him better. I just like Scary Monsters Diego better. And he made a big impression on me. Sandman is another one that just like, man, the wave of hurt that washed over me when I found out that he was the one. Oh, I was so hoping for him to be a bro. I think he was so... there was definitely a lot of justification in his actions. Like, they weren't good actions. I wish he hadn't, you know, joined up with Valentine. It was a bad move, but I so get it. And I so get, like, the reasoning. And it's very tragic. It's tragic to think of him, like, thinking of his like, tribe and his sister and everything in his last moments. And, yeah. So, I liked him a lot. His stand was cool. I hope I have his stand on the stand tier. He better be on the tier list. Because he had a really, really cool stand too. And I liked it a lot. But yeah, he's one of those ones that like, he was a villain, but I didn't even like hate him villain. You know what I mean? Speaking of which, next on the list is Ringo. I liked Ringo so much. I just, from the moment I saw him, like, his design was so good. The first thing I thought, and I don't think I ever said this in the review, but I'll tell you now. First thing I thought was, this is what Part 3 Joseph would look like if Araki drew him in the new art. Changed my mind. I think this is what he would look like. Super, super cool. I love the influence he had on the story. Right up, like, through a lot of the story, Jiro's still drawing on that experience that he had with him and, like, learning of the true man's world and all that. And he had such an OP power. Like, who the fudge gets a time stand is a side villain that was in how many chapters? He was only in a couple chapters, you guys. He had one arc. Like, even Whole Horse came back twice. He didn't have no time stand. That still blows me away. That was when I started to put together, like, Araki is just, he's sparing nothing here. This is, like, it's just, so good. It's so good. And also Ringo had a really tragic backstory, and you know how I am with the tragic backstories. can't help but think about where you came from. And like, I know it doesn't justify anything bad that you do now. I understand that. But like, how are you supposed to be able to totally turn on Ringo when you know what he went through and you see that little boy in your mind's eye, and like, or Diego when you see a little baby Giorno Diego? How? Okay. So next would be Blackmore. Blackmore was really cool. He had an awesome design. It's such a cool looking stand. Like Catch the Rainbow was a very unique and just really fun, clever stand. That being said, I'll just stop right here and tell you, like, there really were no bad stands, I don't think, in part 7. I felt like all of them, even the ones we saw for 2 seconds, were pretty clever and interesting. And that really says something. Like, don't misunderstand these rankings as like, that I really didn't think there were badly written or like badly done characters or stands in part 7. So like the ranking is all just kind of like best of the best down to best. You know what I mean? But yeah, I enjoyed Blackmore a lot. Yeah, I'll probably say more when I get to the stand one, but he was in like the villain, but like this person stood out to me. Like, you're a villain and I can't put you in top tier, but I will give you your credit of like being an amazing villain or having an amazing, some kind of influence or something on the story that was really, really notable. Axl Rowe I put in here because I just love that Civil War arc so much. I think his stand is so cool. I love like where it led, like that's where we get to see Johnny when he's like, maybe if I can't have the corpse parts, nobody should. And he just like doubles the heck down. I mean, like, that was just such a good arc. I love Civil War. That's where we learn about hot pants. I feel like in a way that stand fight represented so much of what this part is about, because it's so much about learning from your past and learning from things that have happened to you and where to go from there and how to move forward. I really, really liked it. Axl Rowe as a character, I mean, we know he was like, he's another one that like, you know, he wasn't really a good guy. You know, he really wasn't. But he wasn't so like icky that you can kind of be like, that's a good villain right there. Like you had stuff going on, you know what I mean? You weren't just like, meh. You weren't just like, you know, you weren't the monkey for Barney, or you weren't like a lassie, you know what I mean? So yeah. All right, next category, best bros and sisses. Obviously, Gyro I had to put on God tier. Again, I think Gyro's arguably the best Joe bro of all time. It's really hard to like, I mean, we're talking about Speedwagon, you know what I mean? He's the ultimate waifu. However, like, it's just so hard to compare. This is like one problem I really have with the rankings in this one is like, how do you compare someone as beloved as Speedwagon, but who for the most part, like as a character, can you really say that as a character, Speedwagon was written with the depth and care and precision and everything that like Gyro was? But he's Speedwagon, you know what I mean? Like he's, like, what do you do with it? It's like kind of like comparing apples to oranges, you know? That's why I had such a hard time with the rankings. When we actually get to the parts, you're gonna see I had a really, really tough time ranking all of them because like the feeling, the love, the vibe, everything, like Araki always had that. That's what made all the other parts so great. But part 7 is just so on another level when it comes to just how detailed and mature and everything it was. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very hard. Like, honestly, I don't know if I can choose between Speedwagon and Gyro. Like, this, we're talking about freaking Speedwagon. Like, he's beloved. But Gyro was so effing good, you guys. Anyway, on to best bros and sisses. Of course, we have Hot Pants, Lucy are some of the first ones. I loved Hot Pants so much. I ended up liking her so much more than I thought I would. And I know that like Araki has always really tried to include female characters and do them justice. It hasn't always worked out that way because of limitations like his editors and things like that. You know, he really wanted to do a bigger fight with Lisa in part 2, and his editors were like, no, nobody wants to see that. And it's like, ugh. I wish we could like see the vault, you know, like where are the story ideas that he wanted to do that like they would that never made it, you know what I mean? Like I'd love to see the vault one day. Because I bet that would have been a great fight between Lisa and Cars. Anyway, we know he's always had a lot of respect for female characters, which is something I really appreciate, and I think you can see a lot in his work. And Hot Pants really feels like a lot of the culmination of that as well. She had a great backstory. She had a really amazing stand. Like when you think about it, for a stand that's not inherently like a combative or like offensive stand, it's such a cool stand. We'll talk about it more when we get to the stand tier list. But yeah, I really enjoyed her. I loved her vibe around Johnny and Gyro too, because she's just kind of no nonsense, and like on her own, she's like cool, no nonsense, got her mission, got her baggage and everything she's doing. But around Johnny and Gyro, this really feels like a big sister situation where she's like, I'm sorry, I came prepared with like supplies and food and all the stuff, and and they're just like, ooh, can we have some? I love it. I love the vibe. Yeah, Hot Pants she was a real one. Really wish we got more resolution for her. I guess we can only assume she died. I don't know. But I guess maybe it's nice to open it. I don't know. Maybe when I get to part 8, maybe they'll be like, maybe they'll mention her. I don't know. If she was a nun though, would she go on and like have, like, I don't know if she'd have any descendants, and her sibling died. So like, I don't know, maybe they'll mention her, you know. Lucy, my girl. Oh, my girl. I wanted to protect this sweet child so bad. This girl had me all over the place, because when they strung us along with the whole like marriage thing for a while, and I was always like, oh, like I would have been like a little over the whole like being a child bride thing, but then that gets resolved and we're like, oh, we're okay, so we're cool there, good. But like she's constantly getting put in these depraved situations where she's like being just creeped on, objectified in some way, hurt, threatened, you know, even taking on, you know, the corpse parts and everything was really not like, it's not like she got this cool power up and was able to go and kick butt, you know what I mean? Like it was killing her, like she would have died. Like everything that happened to her was bad. I just feel so bad for her, and I hope she just, again, maybe in part 8 we'll get to know what happened to her. I would love that, because I just want the absolute best for her. I want her to be so freaking happy after this. I want her to reap like all the happiness that she is owed after putting in so much like crap time. And I love that in the end, like she's the one who kind of comes in and saves the day. I mean, it was definitely a joy. Totally a joint effort, because like all of them helped each other to get to that place. So the fact that she was the one that took out Diego, the bad Diego, and now the other one was good, but he was better at least. He was less bad. She took out Diego. She was the one who puts the final, or helps put the final like seal on the corpse parts and everything. So yeah, she was a doll. Every storyline with her drove me crazy, and how scared I was for her, but she was a real one. Steven Steele, he snuck up on me, because I honestly, like, I started out the part being like, it's literally the first thing we start with. Well, no, I think the first thing we start with is Sandman. I think. But we like go to Steven Steele talking about the race and everything, and like they really decided to play the long game with him. Like Araki really, and actually I don't even know if Araki had in mind how noble he was going to end up being, because there is that chapter 11.5 that I wasn't even aware of until like the end. And he was like still kind of like, it sounded like they were just married in that. But when you learn the actual story and just like everything he did for her and like all the ways he came up with this big elaborate plot, and he just wanted her to be okay. And he's like, someday you go and, you know, you have to marry whoever you want. Like you're free to do that. This is just for your well-being and to get you out of a bad situation right now. And he was cool. I liked him a lot. He showed up to help. Hey, he showed up to help Johnny. Johnny couldn't have that, you know, that's actually true. He and Lucy both, for characters that did not have any stands or powers or anything, really showed up when we needed them. So he was cool, and he was the whole reason, obviously, for it. Well, he had the idea of the race. Again, it was a joint effort. Mountain Tim! I liked Mountain Tim so much. He was really cool. I loved his stand. He was really hot. I enjoyed him a lot. I really would have loved to have seen him stick around longer and be a bro to them longer. Or at least like, okay, go off and we'll have a bunch of time without him. But then ultimately we end up, he shows up at some point to like help out or something. But they took him out pretty early. It was really sad. So, yeah. But I liked his stand a lot. I like that I always felt like Araki really, really wanted to do like a what if whole horse turned face thing. And he did it with Mountain Tim. And it was great. It was great. I'm glad we got to witness him doing that. Weka Pipo, obviously. He was a real one. He was really cool. I love the whole backstory. We got a lot of backstory. I mean, all the side villains, well, not all of them, but like most of them got backstories, which I think is like so cool. And of course, Weka Pipo ended up being a bro. But yeah, I love that. That's like another thing I love about this part. But he was cool. I wish so much he hadn't trusted Diego at the end. He like makes that conscious decision of like, Johnny and Gyro look like they're in trouble. I'm gonna stick with Diego here. And I'm like, no, you made the wrong decision, friend. But he was, you know, he really, he came through for us a lot. And, I'm sad that he never got to see his sister again, but I'm glad that at least he got to find out she was okay. And I think he at least like was in a better place when he died, even though he sadly had to die, than like before Johnny and Gyro met him, based on everything that had happened to him. All right, last one. I had to put Nicholas in this category. I know we didn't really get him as like a Jobro in this part, but he was literally Johnny's brother, and he was so sweet. And I like to think that like if Johnny grew up in a house with so little love and appreciation and everything, I don't know what the mom was like. She just like wasn't really present for a lot of the stuff that was going on. I mean, she was at the dinner table, but like, I don't know, who knows? Like, we'll never know. But I feel like Nicholas is probably greatly responsible for a lot of Johnny's like sweeter side and everything that kind of got nurtured by Nicholas and his influence. And we lost him too young. But he had a big impact on the story. Like, he really did. And Danny, oh my God, I wish Danny was in here. Danny should totally be in here. He was an angel. You can't give it. Danny was working for Jesus. Like, I think we established that. He really was. Okay, the next one is kind of like a category. It's not really like, there's good and bad in there, but it's like you weren't around a lot, but you had a big impact on the story. And I'll go through why I like these characters or don't like them, but why I feel justified in my ranking. Gregorio Zapoli, honestly, for a while I didn't care for him, but I came to understand him a little bit more, and I appreciate him a lot more by the end of the story and like where he was coming from. I feel absolutely horrible that he had to end up getting Gyro's body delivered to him. As part of me wants to see that scene, and the other part is like, I don't think I could ever rehydrate from the amount of tears that would flow from my body over that scene. Like, maybe it's just best left to the imagination. But he was like mostly he was all in flashback, but he had a really big impact on the story and on Gyro. So I kind of put him in this like category of like, I'm not really ranking you so much by power, by how much I like you. I'm ranking you by like, all right, you were there and this is what you did. Does that make sense? I feel like these rankings are not they're not the best, but like, I really didn't know how to just go through like, love you, you're okay, hate you. You know what I mean? Because like, there's so much more to it than that. The next one was George Joestar. Like, he did have a big impact on the story. Like, a lot of why we were here to begin with started with George. And I do have to say that I am glad that Johnny kind of got his happy ending here. I have started reading part 8, so I am going to put a pin in some of the things I want to say about some of these characters, and we'll talk more about it when we get into part 8. But I'm happy for Johnny that he got that, even if they were never close again after that. Let's say they weren't, because I don't want to tell you anything from part 8. Let's say they weren't even close after that. Johnny still got that, and that is so huge for him. I'm so happy for him. Diego's mother, again, huge, and not in the story a lot, but huge impact on the story, seeing as how she was Diego's whole motivation. I think that he was definitely way better off being raised by her than by Dario, because we see like the Dio raised by Dario and the Dio raised by his mother. And I gotta say, I will stand by this till the end of time. Diego was a nicer person than Dio. I think we can all agree about that. And he had a couple of different turns, and he would have been a pretty cool dude. He would have even been a bro. And his mother was definitely not perfect, but she cared a lot about him, and I think it shows. I think it shows in how different he is from Dio. Norsuke Higashikata was there. He didn't really do very much. I think he creeped down Hot Pants a little bit, and that was it. But he's going to be another one that I put a pin in for later, so just stay tuned on that. These characters were already all here, so like, I'm just kind of like putting them where I think they fit. Marco literally got 2 scenes with him in a flashback, but he was such a big part of the story. It breaks my heart he did not get to go on and live a long, happy life. I still don't fully understand that decision by Araki, but I'm trying to rationalize it as like, maybe this is part of a life lesson that like, not everything gets a happy ending, but that's, it's okay. Nah. He could have let Marco live. Hear me out. He lets Marco live, and when we do a time jump for a different part, we find out that like Marco named his son Gyro or something. You know what I mean? Tell me that wouldn't have been nice. Tell me it wouldn't have hit really well. He was such a sweet baby. I look at his little face. I'm heartbroken every time I see it. Sugar Mountain was a really sweet, fun character. Didn't have a ton to do in the story, but I love that arc so much. It's got to be like one of my favorite arcs of Steel Ball Run is the Sugar Mountain one, and just everything we learned from that. She was very tragic, I feel like. Very cute, very tragic. And just in general, like I love her because of her, but also a lot because of that arc, because that's when we get like the snow scene in that arc. What was I doing the other day? And I just started thinking of the scene where we're snowing and they're just toasting, and I just lost it. Just lost it. I do that a little bit sometimes over like different sad JoJo memories. And I can elaborate on that if you'd like, but I won't do it here because we're here for a video. Specific video. All right, Scarlet. Scarlet was a memorable character. I would say she had a lot of impact on the story, even though she wasn't around very much, only because we did that whole thing where Lucy ends up kind of taking her place. She gave me the ick so many times with all the stuff with Lucy. I just like, I'm not on board for how many people were creeping on Lucy, you guys. I really am not. But she was, I mean, definitely a memorable character, I would say. Like, I don't think any of us are forgetting her scenes anytime soon. But yeah. Poco Loco did not have a lot to do with the actual story. And I was kind of surprised by that because the way they kind of built him up at first, I kind of thought that maybe at some point we'd get him more involved in like what was going on, but like he had nothing to do with like to Poco Loco. This was just a race. Like this was just a horse race. That's all it was. And I love the fact that like for what little time we got with him and how he really was not super involved in any of like the main plot of the story, he ends up being a super important character because he wins the race. So yeah, I again in part 8, I think it would be really fun if we like revisited kind of like what's going on there with his descendants or whatever, but I'm not very far into part 8 yet, and I don't have any of that information. Dr. Ferdinand, they literally just had a big impact on the story. Like, I think we saw this person for maybe 5 seconds, but technically it was because of them that we have scary monsters, and I love scary monsters, so yeah, small in the story, big on the impact. Then there's my ick category. I didn't have a lot of people in ick. I definitely would have put AU Diego Wizardo in ick if he was on here. Dario, total ick. Ick in every universe. How much of a crap person do you have to be ick in every, like even Dio was nicer in this universe. And Dario was still the crappiest of crap people. Like, it's almost impressive, you know? It's like, throughout the universe, you've maintained your a-holishness. I put Magenta in here just because I really didn't like Magenta. I don't even know what all he did that was, I mean, I just didn't like him. He was just icky. His stand was actually pretty cool, to be fair. And his design was cool, but he's probably closest to icky. There are a bunch that I just didn't know how to rank them, but I'll give them honorable mention. We had Disco. Disco was fine. Chocolate Disco was interesting. Like, it didn't blow me away, but like, I just didn't know where to put him. Hot Pants' horse didn't have a whole lot to do in the story. I actually thought Mike O was really cool. I just didn't know where to put him exactly because he wasn't like a bro. He wasn't like a Joe bro. He was kind of a villain. You know what? I actually really like Tubular Bells, though. Like, I thought Tubular Bells was a really good set. I might have to put him in, like, the villain but so good category. Maybe I'll put him in villain but so good. How's that? Because, like, I actually thought Tubular Bells was cool and kind of a clever stand. Pork Pie Hat Kid didn't really do it. I guess the stand is kind of cool, but, like, he felt like this part's, like, Jenkin Boy. The Boom Booms were just kind of there. They were funny, but like they didn't really, like, oh my god, remember that part with the Boom Booms? Like, to be fair though, they're like some of the first stand users that we get. So I mean, there's that. Silver Bullet was a very good horsey. Very, very good horsey. But didn't really, I wasn't going to put Silver Bullet in God tier 2. And then we got Stroheim, which Stroheim didn't do a lot in this, but I respect that Stroheim, like, he put in a character that was basically, like, I mean, he looks like Stroheim. Like, when he showed up, I'll never forget seeing them on the horses, like, yeah, there's Johnny, there's Gyro, there's Stroheim. Stroheim? What are you doing here? Because up to that point, we had just really drastically changed, I feel like, just anyone who was a reference to the old universe. But he didn't really, he didn't really do a whole lot, but he was there and it was cool. So, all right, guys, that's wow, we spent a lot of time on the characters. We're going to have to go through the stands pretty quick because I already said a lot about the stands. So the stands, I have a little bit more of a proper ranking of like epic, cool, nice, interesting, and okay. I'm just going to drag because I actually like Tubular Bells a lot. So yeah, so epic obviously would be super OP, or I just love them for whatever reason. I put all acts of Tusk in here. Yes, I understand that Little Baby Elephant Tusk, Act 1, is not OP. However, he is small baby and good baby. And he is going in epic, and you can't change my mind on that. He's a tiny little elephant thing, and I love him. But obviously Tusk Act 4... I mean, even up to Act 3, the fact that like Johnny could move around in infinity was pretty freaking cool. But I mean, Act 4, like, does it get more powerful than Act 4? He could move in a time stop, you guys. Like, I mean, I guess there are people before who could move in a time stop. Like Poochie was able to move in a time stop. Jojo was able to move in a time stop, but he got Zaworldo, so like, I don't know. Do you think Tusk Act 4 is the strongest stand? What do you think is the strongest stand of the 7 parts? Because I'm not that far in part 8 yet, so if there's one stronger, I can't really comment on that. Yeah. So, I mean, I already said my piece about Tusk. I think it might be, it might be the strongest, you guys. Do you think... No, you know what? Let's not get into a big discussion about like what Tusk could and couldn't do, because we'll be here all day. But I mean, it's epic. It's epic. It's epic for its power. But one thing that I love about the Part 7 stands is they're not just about power. They're a reflection of the person. And having Tusk Acts 1 through 4 is such an amazing representation of Johnny and his healing process and his growth throughout this whole story. And again, I like to think that Jesus was kind of helping him out, because he did originally get the stand from the corpse parts, and then he lost the corpse parts and still had it. So I like to think that like Jesus was just like, we're cool and you have a stand now. There was really no other explanation for it. So okay, also on the list, they're not really in order. I just kind of dragged and dropped them here, so they're not in order. They're just ones I think are epic. All right, I have Mandem on the list because, again, explain to me how this side villain is so freaking OP. And I understand maybe it's not the strongest time stand, but it's a freaking time stand. Like that, I don't know. I really enjoyed Ringo. I appreciated Ringo a whole lot. If we were gonna get like a non-canon side story about anybody, I think Ringo would be a really cool one to focus on. Like, he's one that I'm like, you know what? I could have taken more of him. And then we have, what's this one? Cream Starter? Yeah, we have Cream Starter. I loved Cream... Oops! I forgot my... Sorry, guys. I forgot that was on. It's my very, very loud air conditioner that we don't want going on right now because you won't be able to hear me, even as loud as I am. Yeah, Cream Starter is like, again, for a not really offensive stand, so amazing. Healing capabilities. The fact that you can basically shapeshift is amazing. Like, there's so much you can do with it, and she was so smart and knew just how to use it. So it's going on epic. D4C, of course it's epic. Of course it is. Any of the main villain stands are going to be pretty epic, but I really appreciate how this one was like, kind of was and wasn't a time stand. Like, technically, yeah, it is. It's more of a reality stand. You're moving through different realities, different dimensions and everything. But that is really freaking cool. Like a dimension hopping, multiverse hopping stand. Pretty OP. Of course we have Zaworldo. Of course we have Zaworldo in here. So it's Zaworldo. Like, I don't have to like the user to know that Zaworldo is like one of the most OP stands of all time. Question. Has anyone else ever gotten the idea that like Zaworldo, the actual stand, is kind of cool? Like, it's got, like, if you were just to hang out with Zawoldo without Dio around, like, he would actually be kind of a cool dude. He doesn't he just kind of look like he sort of, like, doesn't, he'd be chill? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I mean, he looks like Crazy Diamond, too, and I love Crazy Diamond, so maybe that's why I just kind of like his look. Does he not look like he'd just be a cool dude to hang out with? You know? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Just, like, for some reason, I can't help but think of wanting to hug Star Platinum. Like, he just feels like the squishiest of all the stands to me. Might just be me. I have Ball Breaker on here, which is Gyro stand. I love the name. The name, when I was reading it, I'm like, this has got to be AC/DC, right? Like, this sounds like it'd be an AC/DC song. It is. I knew that they had the song Big Balls, which is a very funny song. But I think, like, Ball Breaker is a little bit cooler of a name for a stand, maybe. And it is an AC/DC thing, which, you know, he was in his AC/DC era in this, you know, he's in different parts. He's like, oh, he's in his Prince era, he's in his Queen era. He was really loving AC/DC here. I mean, he loved AC/DC in part 2 as well, because we had AC/DC. Okay, I also have on here, some of the pictures are cropped, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I'm pretty sure this is Ticket to Ride when Lucy starts getting the corpse parts. It's a pretty epic stand. I hate that it was hurting her so much, but I mean, I don't know what the difference between Ticket to Ride and Love Train really is. Because we already see things starting to align kind of for Lucy. But like when Valentine gets it, it's so much more like it's literally pushing all the bad away to somewhere else. But it's a pretty epic stand. And of course, D4C would include D4C Love Train, because it's pretty much one of the most OP stands ever. In the cool category, which is, this is cool. It might not be like time-stopping epic, but I like it. We have, actually, I'm kind of confused on why I did that. I think I'm going to switch these around, because I really like Tubular Bells. So in cool, we have a couple of stands. Blackmore stand, Catch the Rainbow. I don't know. I just really like the way it works. I like the aesthetic. There's just something about it that was really, really fun. And that's one of those ones that, like, when it gets animated, it's going to be even cooler. Scary Monsters, you guys. Freaking love Scary Monsters. It's kind of a cute name. It's kind of a cute stand. I understand that it's dinosaurs that can make other dinosaurs, and, you know, it's a beast and it can hurt and kill and maim people. I understand that, but it's kind of cute. Am I right? Am I alone in this? Tell me I'm not alone in this. He's dinosaur. And remember he makes the little dinos? You remember how he makes the little dinos? Plus, it's a really cool stand, and it's pretty effective the way he uses it. But it's dinosaur babies. All right, I have Tubular Bells next, because I just think it's cool that, like, the balloon animal thing is so clever. It's so out of nowhere, but I really appreciate it. And the whole, like, being able to do it for metal, when, like, we saw in the Mariah episode, like, metal is pretty all over the place. Like, it's everywhere. That's pretty, it's very versatile. It's a very versatile stand. I liked it. And then we have, I think this is Mountain Tim's. Yeah, I think this is Mountain Tim's, Oh Lonesome Me. I loved that one because it reminded me, the way that he used it kind of reminded me of a couple of different stands. At times it reminded me of, like, Sticky Fingers. But it was also, like, very much his, and I love the way that he used it. He would just, like, you could use it defensively with, like, the couple times he almost got taken out. He was just able to kind of, like, split himself apart and then put himself back together. And it just also has, like, the whole cowboy vibe and everything. It's a cool stand. Again, all the stands in Part 7 are good stands. Like, there really isn't a bad stand. So in the nice category, like, this was really good. Actually, you know what? I think I want to go ahead and put in a silent way up there too, because that was also, it reminded me a lot of Echoes. It was a really cool stand, awesome name, and I just really like Sandman, you guys. He was another one that I just couldn't not appreciate, you know, even though he was a villain. So in the nice category, which is like, this was good, it might not be the most powerful, but there was a lot to appreciate about it. Kind of like, it's the third ranking. I have Heya because even though Heya was basically somebody, oh my God, somebody in my comments blessed me with this, that Heya is basically a good version of Cheap Trick. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Because Heya, I think mostly was just sort of hyping him up. I don't think Heya was really, like, you guys explained, like, no, the luck was not Heya. The luck was just his luck. Heya was just there to, like, encourage him, kind of, like, talk him through it. And I'm like, that is so amazing. Like, is it Zawoldo? No, it is not. It's not D4C. It's not Taskatch 4. But if I can have a little stand that hypes me up, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. I have Sugar Mountain on here. Sugar Mountain was actually a real, I don't know why I ranked it so low. It's actually a really powerful stand. It was hard for them to get out of. It's just not very, like, you have to kind of be in its path, you know what I mean, for it to work. I really love Sugar Mountain, less because of, like, any kind of combative capability and more because of the story. What was the name? Was the name of the stand? What was the name of the stand? Was the name of the stand Sugar Mountain, or was the name of the stand something else? Hang on, I have a list of the. Now it's gonna lock up, of course. What's the name of it? Sugar Mountain stand was the name of both, the girl and the tree thing. I kind of like more the lesson that you can learn from Sugar Mountain. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I really appreciate Sugar Mountain. And I think it's also a good example of our 7 of how, like, not all stands have to be like combat stands. You know what I mean? Some stands can be different, you know, if it's a reflection of your soul. And I know we had this thing in, like, part 3 with, like, oh, it's your fighting spirit, and it's, you know, so if you don't kind of have a fight, you know, if you're not a fighter, you're not going to get a stand. I do feel like we bent the rules on that a little bit here, and I don't mind it, because, you know, they're not all necessarily, most of them are stands you would fight with, but, like, I feel like Sugar Mountain was sort of a life lesson kind of stand, you know what I mean? It was very interesting. I don't know, I appreciate it a lot. And we have, gosh, what was his stand called? The one I didn't like. Oh my gosh. Where is it? It's gonna be, 20th Century Boy. 20th Century Boy, sorry. 20th Century Boy was actually a really cool stand. It's really hit or miss, because, like, it's either super OP or, like, was really easy to take out, because the whole like caveat of, like, oh, you like have to have the armor on you and everything. It's like, that's kind of ultimately how he got defeated. So it kind of is and isn't OP, but it's interesting. So I put it on nice. I actually probably should have just put it on interesting, because there is a section for interesting, and I put Oye Como Va, which was actually, I feel like you know what? I'm going to switch them. I don't know. I mean, 20th Century Boy was a really cool, so I feel like, I don't know, ranking it so low, I don't know. But yeah, so I kind of changed these around, so I don't know, like, what the, poor Leonie with the editing on this one, because I literally was just gonna be like, oh, I'll just do, like, a screenshot instead of, like, doing, like a screen capture. I'm just doing, like, a screenshot of, like, my tier list, and it's gonna look a little bit different from where I'm actually putting it. Sorry if it's confusing, but yeah. But Oye Como Va was actually pretty cool with the whole, like, the making the bombs thing and everything. It was actually pretty sick. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. That's a tough one. All right, maybe I'll switch him back. I don't know. I liked Oyekamova. It was actually a pretty good stand. I mean, we only saw it for like 2 seconds, but and then I have an okay. Of course, I have like the Boom Booms. I have Pork Pie Hat Kid actually had a pretty cool stand. Like, these aren't really ranked so much for power. They're ranked for just like kind of the impression they made on me. Pork Pie Hat Kid, I think the biggest impression that made on me is that was one of the things that like spurred Johnny on to another evolution, wasn't it? And then we had Chocolate Disco, which was another stand that's really cool and clever. It did get taken out in about 10 seconds by Gyro. But it was clever. Like, it was interesting, and it definitely had its like power and everything. I think this one is called Tattoo You. Let me check really quick. It's the one with where it's during the Sugar Mountain arc, and they go and they're gambling, and they have all the people like come in. It's like the person who can make like a whole bunch of themselves. Cool stand. Worked really well in that arc. It's just one of those ones that it's not one that I think about as like, oh my god. You know what stand was awesome? It was pretty cool though. And then there was one more in here that I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be, but hopefully I got pretty much all the stands. And so that's my stand. Okay, this is going on a really long time. So that's my stand ranking for part 7. And my character ranking right before that. I am going to come to now the hardest part of this whole thing, a reading from the book. Because I love this little notebook and all the stickers on it. Ranking them was so difficult, you guys. It was so difficult. Because again, I almost just feel like, how do you even compare something like part 7 to other parts? Hands down the best part. It is his best work that I've read so far. All the way across the board. Writing, pacing, art, characters, plot, everything. Everything is like... everything that he did right and everything that he did wrong in all the other arcs and all the other parts. This is the pinnacle of everything he learned from that. You know what I mean? That being said, all the other, there's still, I mean, the other parts are amazing. It's not to say that they're bad in any way. And I still like, they're in my heart so much. And that being in my heart, as you can see from the way that I ranked everything, being in my heart rates so highly for me. Part 7 is in my heart because it is such a beautiful story of brokenness, healing, faith, friendship. Like, it's such an amazing dramatic story. However, there are other parts that are my happy place. And how do you rank that objectively? You know what I mean? When like that, my heart is so much a part of these parts. How do I manage that? So I have like a cop-out answer, and I don't know if you guys are gonna like it, but I had to do, it's not a tie, it's like a thry. Before part 7, my 2 favorite parts, they were tied, were part 2 and part 4. And I'm sorry, I just got to go ahead and just add part 7 to the number 1 spot. So 2, 4, and 7 are my favorite parts. Number 1 spot. I know it's a cop-out. I know it is. And I'm sorry. I gave it so much thought. I could not find it in my heart to put, because like I said, part 7 is the best part. Like, it is the best part. Like, I'm willing to acknowledge that. But for my favorites, I just hate putting 2 and 4 down. Because 2 had, like, I love the pacing of part 2. I love the story flow, especially compared to other parts. It actually flows like a story and not so much like Monster of the Week. I love Joseph. He's my favorite. Spoiler alert for the for the JoJo rankings. But part 4 is like, I have most of part 4 absolutely memorized. I could probably recite it. I love part 4. And part 7 is the best. So like, they're all at number 1 spot, you guys. 2, 4, and 7. They're sharing a spot. They're sharing a spot. Second place goes to part 3 and part 5. And I'll tell you why. Because part 3, I know a lot of people have a problem with part 3. It was too long. It was very like monster fight of the week, monster of the week. Those are both true. I love Stardust Crusaders for so many other reasons. I am a sucker for the legacy story, and having followed 1 and 2, knowing coming in that 3 was supposed to be the last part and it was the finale, this lifelong story that spanned across centuries. I mean, and part 3 was the one where like at the end of part 3 there, that's where it happened. Like, I loved it, I was hooked, but that's when it got in my blood. And now it's just my life. And it's, yeah. But the reason why part 5 is tied is because I also love part 5. But here's the thing. Part 5 did what part 3 did better. It did what part 3 did better. It did the ensemble cast, but it was him doing that style with more experience and more skill under his belt. And I mean, part 5 is in my heart in a lot of ways too. I mean, part 3 and part 5 are so connected as well, because we have like the story of Jotaro and Polnareff going to find the arrows, and Polnareff is in part 5, and like, so I feel like they're connected, and I honestly can't choose between them, because part 3 got me. It is the one where I just went from being a fan to just falling completely in love. But part 5 was an improvement on the style of that, and had beautiful art, and was just such a good, really, even on its own in so many ways, such a good part. I know there's a lot of complaints about part 5 because people feel like, oh, Bruno was actually the main character and Giorno wasn't as prominent as the main character, and you know, I can see how in other parts the main character feels a bit more prominent because you don't have all the built-up bros. And again, that's why part 7 is like, I mean, to be fair, in part 7 we really don't have an ensemble cast. We have, it's mostly just Johnny and Gyro, but they are both so well done. It's like Gyro, for being the kind of giving main character vibes for so long, like Johnny still shines in his story and everything. So I see that. I honestly can't choose between them. 3 and 5 are tied for second spot. For my third spot, I have written here parts 1 and 6 tied, because I literally could not put one over the other. And I know, again, that's a controversial opinion, because a lot of people rank Stone Ocean super high and rank Phantom Blood super low. And I understand the reasoning on both. Absolutely get it. Stone Ocean is this epic finale. I mean, you want to talk about like legacy stories and everything too. It comes in and it does that legacy story so well. Honestly, I hate putting Phantom Blood last because I just love it so much, and I love it. The more time goes on, the more I love it. And I love Jonathan, and I think he's so underrated, and he doesn't get the respect he deserves, in my opinion. So I hate putting Phantom Blood last, but I might have to put Stone Ocean and then Phantom Blood. Because Stone Ocean is just like, if you're comparing them head to head, like, I know Phantom Blood started it all, but Stone Ocean ended it all. And it was so good. It fills me with so many feels, and I love Jolene. So I think I hate putting Phantom Blood last. Like, I feel like a horrible person for doing that. And to be clear, I love them all. Like, saying that Phantom Blood is last is like saying it's like 9.1 out of 10. And the others are just like, just happen to be like 10 out of 10 or 11 out of 10 or wherever, 9.5 out of 10. For my JoJo rankings. Number 1 spot, my love, Joseph. I know he's not perfect. I know that. Trust me, nothing would make me happier than if, for some reason, Araki came out with a story that retconned, like, he was possessed by an enemy sand user or something. And it wasn't him. You don't know how happy that would make me. Cause, he'd just be, he wouldn't be flawless. Joseph, he wasn't flawless, but he wasn't that flawed. Anywho, number 1 spot, love him so much. Probably one of my favorite characters of all time, period, outside of JoJo's. However, if it weren't for Joseph, Josuke would definitely be my favorite. So I had to put Josuke 1.5. He's not even second place. He's 1.5. Again, it's a cop-out. I'm sorry. I don't care. It's my video. I can do it. Number 2 spot, as you may have imagined, is Johnny. Johnny is an amazing JoJo. He is so real. He's probably the one that feels the most real and kind of, I don't know, I hate to say down to earth, but like, there's just something about him. There's something about his story of like this redemption story. And it's just, it's so good. In my comments, I read something really, really good about Johnny and Jonathan. Because there's so many similarities. Johnny and Jonathan both had hardships. They both went through terrible things and had to pull themselves up out of it. Jonathan had it in him. He was motivated to do that. He had horrible time growing up and everything with Dio. Dio was terrible to him. His dad wasn't always that understanding. But he had this whatever kind of foundation that was enough for him to be able to want to pull himself up out of it. And kind of like keep encouraged and keep positive and keep motivated. And when we meet Johnny, he's so broken. And he has that want. He has that want to pull himself up out of it. But he just doesn't even know where to start because he hasn't even had, like, he's lacked a lot more love and understanding and appreciation than Jonathan did. And that really resonated with me. I was like, you know what? That is so true. And there's just something about like watching him like with help, but like completely pull himself up out of that. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing. And he's so adorable too. Like it's definitely not just all a sob story. He definitely has his silly parts. He definitely has his like funny parts. So he talks about his fetish and all that stuff. And like, I don't know, he's really likable. And not in like a cinnamon bun kind of way. Not all the time anyway. But he's just really likable. And he's definitely at number 2. He's amazingly written. He's probably one of the best written JoJos. If then maybe the best. I don't know. Again, it's really hard for me to say, but he's up there, you guys. He's up there. Number 3 is Jotaro. Jotaro took me a long time to warm up to, but he's been in so many parts and I've gotten to see his evolution so much, and I gotta say, like, where he ended up, he might not be like the fluffiest and most cuddly one, but in terms of just like his journey and just again the legacy story and how powerful he is and everything, and just the vibe of just like when Jotaro shows up, stuff's going down. You know what I mean? It's just when he shows up in part 6, what did I tell you? I predicted that on part 6 too. I was like, he's gonna show up, Jolene's gonna be in trouble, and he's gonna show up, Did I say you would hear Zawoldo noise and he'd show up? I don't know if I predicted that much, but I said he was going to show up. Man, when he shows up and you hear that blood pressure skyrocketed. I'm lucky I didn't have a stroke. So, was that the one? I think that was where I woke up Buffy. I think it was. All right, so Jotaro's number 3. I love Jotaro. Again, not the fluffiest, but took me a while to warm up to him, but I do love him, and I do think he's one of the best. I hated putting Giorno at 4, honestly, because I love Giorno so much, and, like, I almost tied him with Jotaro, just because, like, I have a lot more, like, squishy, cuddly love for Giorno, because Giorno's he's my baby. You know, I adopted him. I think we're sharing custody, aren't we? I think we have shared custody. But yeah, I love Giorno. Again, I know a lot of people complain like, oh, he didn't have that much personality, blah, blah, blah. The only reason why, I think he was just one of the more, like, stoic ones, like Jotaro. The only difference is Jotaro got more time and kind of, like, more opportunity to sort of, like, expand on his character. And we got to see him at different stages of his life. We saw him as an angry teen. We saw him as an adult in Morio, where he was chilled out and he was babysitting these little crazy Morio babies. We saw him as a dad. We saw what he went through trying to protect his family, you know. And for that reason only, I gotta put him above Giorno, even though I love Giorno. He's my baby boy. I wish we could have seen more of Giorno. I understand the reasoning of not wanting to put other JoJos in other parts to take away from the main JoJos, but I would do some shady, immoral, illegal things to see Giorno again, and Josuke. Honestly, my hope, my dream, honestly, is that when Araki Sensei is done writing all of the parts, he'll maybe go back and do just a really short story, like a light novel of just like a one last little adventure with everybody, you know? Like, I don't know if Joseph is still alive at this point, and he wouldn't have much to do in it anyway, but like Jotaro, Irene, Josuke, Giorno, I think that would be really, really fun. And just saying, you could also take that story as the opportunity to retcon and be like, Joseph was possessed by an enemy stand, and the enemy stand went to Morio and charmed Tomoko. Wasn't him. It was him. It'd be like a Giorno situation. You know, like he's still, like Josuke would still be a Joestar. He'd still have Joseph's DNA and everything. Just saying. Give him his dignity back. Please. Alright. And then I have 4.5 because I was just gonna like thry them all. I have a tie between Jonathan and Jolene. I literally can't choose between them. I love Jolene so much. Honestly, I love Jonathan and Jolene for so many of the same reasons. Because there's so many parallels between their stories. Like, it's like not even funny. Like, there's so many parallels, and I love it. And I love that. I mean, I know, like, Jonathan didn't get much time and everything, and, like, Jolene got so much more time to, like, expand her character and everything. And I understand that, and Jolene is so fun. And so, like, she has so much of that, like, kind of smart alecky, like, Joseph style and everything. But Jonathan's the best boy. He's so wonderful. He's the ultimate John. Like, how are you? I hated putting him last. Phantom Blood, I'll put last, even though I don't want to. But I could not put Jonathan last. I had to tie him with Jolene. And again, it sounds horrible to be putting these characters are so amazing so low on the list. Just understand that, like, when I say, like, 10 out of 10, I mean that, like, the lowest person on the list is, like, 9.5 out of 10. Like, they're still amazing. So that's my ranking, you guys. Thank you for listening to me go on and on and on about this. I need my own podcast. I need a place where I can talk about Jojos all the time and just tell you all my thoughts and hopes and dreams and opinions and headcanons and about songs I've heard that remind me of JoJo and fanfics I've read, and I just need like my own JoJo channel. You know? Like I really need it. But it's been an amazing journey with part 7. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know where you rank some of these characters. Don't feel pressured or obligated to go and make your own tier list, although please do if you want to. Again, I'll try and remember to put the links. But I would just love to know, like, what do we agree on? What do we disagree on? I think it's fun. And at the end of the day, it's so subjective. Because, like, one person might be like, I just didn't care for Zawoldo. I know it's Zawoldo. And you know what? I like Baby Tusk better. And that's totally valid. You are allowed to feel that way. You are welcome here. And you can love on Baby Tusk as much as you want, in my opinion. But you know what I mean? Like, so much of it's so subjective. So, anyway, that was my giant epic rant about, I don't know how I want to do like a tier list and rankings for parts 1 through 6. The video is going to be like 6 hours long. I don't know how I'm going to condense that. I'm definitely going to have to be like more to the point in that one because this one got so long. All right, you guys. Part 8 is coming. Again, I have started already. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. I will leave you with this. There is a song that reminds me a lot of Johnny and Gyro. It's a love song. I don't ship Johnny and Gyro. If you do, that's cool. Whatever, rock on. I don't really. I think of them more as brothers or like a brotherly bond. But there is a song that reminds me so much of them. I've been listening to it nonstop. And it's called God Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts. It's a country song. Listen to the lyrics and tell me it doesn't remind you of their journey together. If you don't ship them, the parts where they say lovers or whatever, just replace it with brothers. I don't know. But like, tell me it doesn't remind you of their journey. And it's a country song. And it mentions God, so it's like it's already related to part 7 so much. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening to me go on and on. I hope you'll join me for part 8. I'll try to keep it a little bit more tight in those reactions and reviews reviews, because I know I can go on and on forever. I just need my own podcast. So I hope you enjoyed listening today, and please be sure to join me next time, and we will read it together. Bye for now, guys.